All right. Good evening. Shalom, everyone. Thanks for coming again. This is another Chase Made conversation, and we are going to discuss some Psalms chapters. We had a reading challenge that we're doing right now, and what I wanted to kind of focus on was one of those days. So the chapter that I want to say stood out to me fairly easily was day 2, which was chapters 2, 7, 12, 17, and 22. When I was in my old job, I remember you know how you just see chaos and you're just like, okay, so what are we doing? What what's going on? Okay, what? And I said that so much that at some point when I got irritated, I had like a little bucket hung over the trash can, and in acronyms it was hand claps. What we not gonna do is, and we'll put the note in the in the little trash can. I'll read it, and if it's something that really needs to go in the trash, it's gonna go all the way in the trash. But it was like a little rule bucket, and it was hilarious. And I did it for like the last year and a half of my tenure there. But it's one of those things where we are walking around in this world, and sometimes we have to look back at ourselves a little bit. Like we're so busy sometimes objectively looking or too far into ourselves that we can't necessarily blend the two to make sure we're not repeating the same mistakes.
We're in Psalms chapter 2, verse
Mhm.
1. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying,
So soon as I heard, why do the heathen rage and imagine those vain things, you start thinking of some stuff. And what it brought me to was Acts chapter 4, verses 24 and 25. Sis Shriya, will you read that for me, please?
And when they heard that, they lifted up their voice to God with one accord and said, Lord, thou art God, which hast made heaven and earth and the sea and all that them is, who by the mouth of thy servant David had said, why did the heathen rage and the people imagine vain things?
So it's repeating back in the old, the old or the ancient books. But what made me kind of think of that is it seems as though a lot of us are still surprised when the enemy or the other nations do a bunch of things that frustrate us. We kind of need to start getting used to it's pretty much in a lot of people's nature to do what is against Yah, right? It's within their nature to say, okay, we're gonna do it this way because this is how we see it. And we shouldn't get caught up in that. As I continued to read in chapter 2, it went to verse 7. And verse 7 basically says, You are my son, I have begotten you. And I summed that up, but I will go straight to it. Psalms chapter 2, verse 7. I will declare the decree. Yahweh has said to me, You are my son, this day have I begotten thee. We have to remember, even though he's talking about Yahweh, we have been selected nonetheless. As it narrows down all the way to him, even before him in the flesh, it has already been chosen. And because we sometimes forget or we don't know, you have to think of Jeremiah 10 when it talks about do not get mad at the heathen because they don't always know what they're doing either. They're walking kind of carelessly and mindlessly. So if Yeshaya can go to Hebrews 5:5, hold that, and then sis Larissa, can you get Acts 13 and 33?
Acts 13 and 33.
Uh,
The Most High hath fulfilled the same unto us as their children, in that he hath raised up Yahushua again, as it is also written in the second psalm, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee.
Thank you. Hebrews 5:5, sis Yeshaya.
Con. So also Christ glorified not himself to be made an high priest, but he that said unto him, Thou art my son, today have I begotten thee.
So these two basically are saying the same thing. And what it brings to mind is in that very same chapter, 1 through 4, it basically says, For every high priest spoken from among men is ordained for men in things pertaining to Elohim, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins. Verse 2, who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way, for that he himself also is compassed with infirmity. Verse 3, and by reason hereof, and he hereof he ought, as for the people, so also for himself to offer for sin. Verse 4, and no man takes this honor unto himself, but he that is called of Yahweh, as was Aaron. This comes to mind to basically once again get into there is a selection process happening right now. So if we are trying to figure out what are we doing, are we paying attention? We have to really commit to what, where, how are we doing? And if that's the way we are trying to go, we're trying to seek Yahweh, we're trying to learn his ways, we have to stop swirling. You know what I mean? We have to stop um allowing our feelings or what we think are our feelings. It could be a temptation. It could be a manipulation or a warping of the truth to pull us out of that, to pull us out of the way. Because even within the elect, there is an elect. Even within the selected, there is a selection. There's different levels of what is considered a negative, but there's a discrimination within it. But it's only because we're just trying to be concise. We don't want everybody doing everything. Even if you look at it from a woman's perspective, every woman, every wife, every mother, every sister, every friend is not going to do every single role that is literally known to man. Some of us are going to have things that we are really good and valuable in, and others that we need some improvement. Others we like, what you got, that is just above. That's above me. That's above my ministry. I can't fix a car. I just can't. I probably won't. I'll learn something later, but I'm not going to just sit there and overwork and overexhaust myself. So even within some of these things, it's a matter of defogging, decluttering the mind. I'm bringing up some of these things because these are like outer or external situations that can literally affect how we move. We don't if we don't care about the heathen raging and imagining vain things, great. How are you still walking in that? Are you now so tunnel visioned that you're still in your own way, you're still in your own um you're a little bit too focused on certain things and you need to actually blend them. You're compartmentalizing and you're not putting things together and aligning. Psalms chapter 2 verse 9 says, you shall break them with a rod of iron, you shall dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. So a couple of things made me think immediately of the potter's vessel. The unclean laws. So Leviticus kind of talks about a bunch of different things, right? And immediately I was like, oh, potter's vessel, New Testament, I remember a while back we had a conversation about how that was reminiscent of the prophet and how it was a weird reference to one of the prophets who mentioned the potter's clay parable and the 30 shekels of silver. It was actually two different prophets kind of combining the two prophecies for Yahushai. But what I wanted to go back to was in Leviticus. So
Chapter 6, verse 27. Whatsoever shall touch the flesh thereof shall be holy. And when there is sprinkled of the blood thereof upon any garment, thou shalt wash that whereon it was sprinkled in the holy place. But the earthen vessel wherein it is sodden shall be broken, and if it be sodden in a brazen pot, it shall be both scoured and rinsed in water.
it's talking about a sin offering, a specific type of sin offering, right? Um, and also to stay away from what type of animal that may end up landing on it if it is an unclean animal, like a dead carcass. Go to chapter 11, start at verse 31, and stop at verse 36.
These are the unclean to you among all that creep. Whosoever doth touch them, when they be dead, shall be unclean until the even. And upon whatsoever any of them, when they are dead, doth fall, it shall be unclean, whether it be any vessel of wood, or raiment, or skin, or sack, whatsoever vessel it be, wherein any work is done, it must be put into water, and it shall be unclean until the even. So it shall be cleansed. And every earthen vessel, whereinto any of them falleth, whatsoever is in it shall be unclean, and ye shall break it. Of all meat which may be eaten, that on which such water cometh shall be unclean, and all drink that may be drunk in every such vessel shall be unclean. And everything whereupon any part of their carcass falleth shall be unclean, whether it be oven or ranges for pots, they shall be broken down, for they are unclean, and shall be unclean unto you. 36. Nevertheless, a fountain or pit, wherein there is plenty of water, shall be clean, but that which is toucheth their carcass shall be unclean.
So that was pretty intense, but sometimes a lot of us overlook what that means, right? It's talking
Mhm.
about running something all the way underwater to make it clean, and then it's saying throw something under the fire to cleanse it, depending on the type of material. And then the other one is saying break it. We're walking around in such an unclean world with such an unclean mind, with such an unclean heart, with such an unclean spirit, in the thought that we think we don't know what we're doing if we know we're doing what's right. We think these crystals, we think this psychic, we think this prophet, we think this fortune teller, we think this uh yoga guru, wisdom, whatever position name you want to title it, those are just very obvious ones. But we think these people are going to get us through, and all we've done is continue to make ourselves clean. We think watching this particular show or listening to this particular music, when we have turned from that, like we've completely walked away from it, but we think it's still okay to kind of surround ourselves with it because we think we're Christ and we have to be amongst them like that. No, that's not the point, and that's not the case. So if we're constantly surrounding ourselves in things that are unclean, how do we break that? How do we, as the vessels, the potter vessel, how do we break ourselves? How do we break that from our way of life or in our spirit? How do we shake that off? Because that could literally still be a part of us. And I don't know why when I read it, it made me think of those two things, but it's basically a way to just get rid of it or to properly purify it. Are we purifying ourselves? Are we doing that? And are we even paying attention to what we're doing? Oh, I'm gonna put myself under the fire, but I I used olive oil or baby oil and just stood in the sun and my skin is burning. So that's my way of doing fire. Like, no, that's not the right way, sis. You got to figure out how are you going to endure this particular pain that you feel uncomfortable from. It's not always superficial. It's deeper than that. But those two items I just found very, very, very odd, but very kind of like it made sense in this day and age as women. Like we deal with unclean things naturally, but the other things that are unclean, if we are not paying attention to that, we'll keep walking straight through that. And then what it also brought to me of that thought was Revelations 2. First of all, Revelations 1 through 4 talks about the seven churches, right? So Revelations 2, verse 27, it says, and I believe this is talking to the church of Thyatira. So verse 27, it says, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. Verse 28, and I will give him the morning star. 29, he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches. Just before that, I noticed as you continue to read, each of them have a different blessing, if you will. If you turn and come to me, this is what I'll give you. And for Thyatira, it says in 26, and he that overcomes and keeps my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. This particular church was dealing with those so-called synagogues of Satan, part of them is, those who call themselves Jews. And so their issue was, I know your works in charity and service and faith and your patience and your works and the love to be more than the first. They had a lot of fruit of the Spirit in this church. 20, verse 20 says, notwithstanding, I have a few things against you because you have suffered that woman Jezebel, which calls herself a prophetess, to teach, to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. We already know the story of Jezebel. And I think the other part of what are we doing? Are we paying attention? Even myself, when I say things to people, I have to remember, whether it's in hindsight or before I say it, I have to pray and make sure I don't want to lead nobody astray, right? So what exactly are we doing to edify each other? What exactly are we doing to prepare ourselves? What exactly are we doing to pray for ourselves and pray for others? What exactly are we doing to ensure what comes out of our mouths becomes the word of the Spirit, and not something that you cast it out to the wrong person. You sowed the seed to the specific person and they misunderstood it and still went astray, right? Sometimes we have to be a little bit more mindful with others. Some we can say that and still be secure in they're going to get it one day or they're going to get it. I think different ways sometimes. So I know that people can still misunderstand me just because they just don't know exactly what I'm speaking on. And it's not necessarily what I'm saying. It may have something to do with what's going on in their lives and then also how they're perceiving that. So how are we making sure we notice, identify, discern the Jezebel characters in our world? And if we have any of that left in us, right? We just talked about breaking the potter's vessel. How do we not become the church of Thyatira that's got all these works, but somewhere in there, we're vowing for or vying for or saying, oh, this person is da 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 da, and we're not vetting them ourselves. So like sometimes, and I want to apologize, I might be sending y'all videos and be like, it was a good one, but I hope y'all just giggle and be like, okay, that was cool. And try not to be like, oh, let me go ahead and buy 15 of their shirts and 20 of their books. Because then with me, I ain't got none of their books. I don't want to. Some people that's not professing certain truths about being an Israelite or, figuring out where they fit in the scriptures, sometimes they still don't know what they talk about. And most women that say that they're prophets, for me, if they don't have their head covered while they're repeating their prophecy, I'm a little unsure of what they're talking about. I'll just say that as a step one. But yeah, it's gonna come to you. The Spirit's gonna come to you, however, and I'm not gonna disagree with that. But chapter 2 continues on to then say, if you are so stuck on complaining, or if you kind of see the heathen raging, they're vain, they don't know what they're doing. We're supposed to be the selected ones. Come on, lift us up. But how do we kind of like move away from all of the distractions if we still haven't figured it out? Verse 10 tells you, if you're in a leadership position or you're surrounded by certain leaders, they call them kings in this particular scripture, to be wise and be instructed and follow Yah's commandments, right? It tells you to be instructed. Follow him in verse 11. Serve Yah in fear and rejoice with trembling. Have you ever rejoiced with trembling? That sounds so opposite, but it's not. I had to think about that for a minute. I was like, rejoice with trembling. Rejoice with trembling. But I know what that is. I know that you can be so thankful and grateful because you just got out of something. You're still shaking, or your body is still going through whatever that feeling is, whether it's cold, whether it's fire, whether it's anxiousness, the butterflies, or whatever that feeling you get, the spasming in your body, whatever that feeling is, it's still trying to make its way through you, good or bad. You're still trying to like move through it, but you are basically giving so much intense and intentional praise and honor and focus to Yah that you're trembling because you've already served with fear just prior to that, by doing that, by giving it up, by giving it to him, right?
Kiss the Son, Psalms 2 and 12. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way. When his wrath is not kindled but a little, blessed are all they that put their trust in him.
Time. The first part of that made me think of Judas when he said, kiss the Son, but then it said, lest he be angry. So there's not really, I don't think that matches the same thing, but it immediately made me think of when Judas betrayed Yahushua, right? So this is basically saying, treat people how they need to be treated, give them honor, acknowledge them, just to prevent them from being angry. You're talking about a prince, you're talking about somebody who's in authority. We're not talking necessarily to stroke their ego. We're basically saying, be honest with them in time, and give them the acknowledgement that's due. Because if they're in that position and they could make a judgment on you or turn your happenstance around, you don't want it to be because you just misled somebody, or you made one of those mistakes that messed up their day. So in that scripture in Hebrew, we know blessed, the Hebrew word for that is barak. In this particular verse, it's actually ashar, and ashar is happy. And if you read back to Psalms chapter 1, and it says, blessed are they that stand not in the ungodly, nor in the way of sinners, and so on and so forth. All of those words are ashar. So happy are they that don't do this. Happy. I don't have to sit with you. I'm good. I am so happy I don't have to hear all that gossip. I am so good I'm eating lunch by myself. I am so good that I turned off the TV. So in this particular one, and it's talking about your situation with your surroundings, whether it be really intense or really complicated or chaotic, you're happy knowing you're not in it. You may see it going on, but you're not in it. So you're happy. Even though they say blessed, happy is still a very wonderful feeling and a wonderful characteristic. And it's just as good as joy, and it's just as good as love, and it's just as good as charity. So I don't want anybody to think that because you're reading it in English and you see the word blessed, I'm downgrading the word. I'm just saying in Hebrew, it's happy. And happy is actually a really good word because it can have levels of like you're consumed with it, and it can go at a higher level ashar in that sense. So trust, the word trust in Hebrew is hasa. So that ch or that kh. So you'll have your ha, your sa, and your ha, and that means to make refuge, flee for protection. Um, we talked a while back about somebody being in safety, but putting trust in somebody is very similar because you're asking for protection, you're asking for some kind of surrounding that's safe. But it goes with batak, but it's not batak, it's kasa. The whole chapter itself was kind of discussing a bunch of things, and a lot of it had to do with immediate or sudden danger or emergency, and more than likely dealing with people of authority. So if you believe or have experienced feeling some sense of when you're at work or when you're in a particular place and you feel like you're in danger or at risk, I'll just say that you're at a higher risk or chance of losing your position, losing your footing, or someone not believing you and kind of like making your life a little bit more challenging, then this particular chapter can kind of tell you exactly where it is. I, as I progressively read the rest of the chapters, I kind of got into basically going, what exactly are we, how much have we been able to participate and make the changes and make the improvements in ourselves? And so starting off with chapter 2, it really kind of gave me some insight into basically what was going on. And then as I continued to read, it just seemed like every single chapter after that almost followed it in a way
Yeah,
or thoughts.
I just wanted to say I can see where you say that Judas is in 12 because when you said that and as you were talking about um, trust and it just made me think about although he betrayed Yahweh Shai, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was flipping the page. So with the kiss, right?
Yeah.
Saying, lest the son be angry and you perish from his way when his wrath is kindled, right? It was all for a purpose. It was for a
Right.
purpose, and that was Judas's lot. That's what he was supposed to do. It says, "Blessed are they that put his trust in them, trust in him." He told them, he told his disciples, that he would have to leave them.
Yep.
So they had to be able to trust. Like, so when you were saying that, that made you think about Judas, that's how I was pulling it together. It's like, yeah, that was the kiss that kind of put everything in motion that was
Mm-hmm.
destined to happen. And then here, this kiss is talking about obedience. And that's exactly what he was doing, although he didn't realize he was being obedient to what Yah had already planned, for his son. So I just wanted to share that when you were saying that, that's what I was getting from it.
That's actually really good that you say that because it's almost like a juxtaposition or kind of like two ways to see the situation. You had Judas who betrayed him because this was kind of like what he was supposed to do, and it was the negative action. And then you have in Psalms 2, it's telling you who perhaps are following Yah, if you are to kiss the son, lest he be angry, or to prevent him from being angry and you perish from the way, it's when his wrath is kindled but a little, it's almost telling you, right? Be careful what you do because
Yes.
you could, stumble on making someone upset, unknowingly, right? You
Yeah.
came in, doop de doo, what did I miss? Oh, whose pen is this? And you didn't even realize that pen was meant for such and such and such, and you just messed up the whole, you know what I mean? You threw yourself in a situation, you put yourself in harm's way and didn't even realize it. It's like when you see those movies, and they're like,
Mhm.
what's over there? And you go over there. You probably should just look around a little bit, take a pause, situational awareness, kind of figure out what you're doing, before you just walk without looking or speak without thinking, and that I thought that was interesting because in the book it capitalizes the word son. So anytime I see that, I'm like, oh, they might be talking about Christ. Even though this was written, technically
Mhm.
before he was actually born physically in the flesh. But I found it really, really cool. Um, moving to chapter 7, I have very little notes, but the only thing I found interesting as far as the chapter itself, I had to look up some words. So it says Shagayan of David, which he sang to Yahweh concerning the words of Cush the Benjamite. I had to figure out what Shagayan meant because I was like, I know this word, I know this word. And basically it seems like it's a song, but they kind of describe it as a rambling. So he might be freestyling. Is kind of what it made me think. Oh, he freestyling. He's just saying a bunch of stuff. He's huffing and puffing. He's in danger. He's trying to figure out what's going on. And then it's about somebody named Cush the Benjamite. The
Mm.
only couple of Cushes that I can remember are in Genesis, right?
Yep.
So I had to look a little bit more. And what I found was I didn't get an answer, but some names came up, meaning you had Cush, but I couldn't find Cush Benjamite. But I found Kish the Benjamite. And Kish the Benjamite, one of their names belongs to Saul's father, whose name was Kish. So I just took a pause right there and was like, is it him? There's no definition answer. I would have to keep digging, digging, digging because that is something that I've never really thought about. So
Mm.
as you're reading chapter 7 and he's saying, yeah, how will my power in you do I put my trust? We just read it in chapter 2.
Mhm.
Put your trust in him. That was one of the last words, and it was talking about kissing the son. And the son could be the son of a king, the prince, the chief, right? Because it sounds like it's somebody in authority, lest he be angry. And so I was like, well, this could apply to this. Okay, well, yeah, all right.
Mhm.
Put my trust, save me from all them that persecute me and deliver me. At this point, he's running from somebody. So I kind of went back into Samuel a little bit just to see, where Kish the Benjamite might have been mentioned. There is another Kish the Benjamite who is kind of with Saul's army, or I'm sorry, with David. And so I kind of couldn't make any sense of it. So I don't want to go in too deep with it, but it seemed really interesting. I just wrote it down and was like, I want to find out more about, even if it has nothing to do with him, how Cush and Kish could potentially be another another kind of like type of or error in people's names. Just 7 for me was really good, only because he's really asking for help. This man
Yeah.
is fighting for his life. You
Yeah.
can almost envision that. And then you can almost look at again the title. What are we doing? What happened? How did you get here? And where are you going? Are you safe? Are you able to get in there? So many sisters and children and brothers right now that are in a situation where in their mind they have nowhere to go. They have nobody to talk to.
Mm.
They don't know where to start. They have no answers. They don't even want to get the answers. They found the answers. They don't like the answers. They still got questions about the answers. They got answers for nothing. They've got excuses for the answers. And then they just keep going, right? They just decide to at the end of the day, Yahweh knows my heart. Yahweh will tell me what to do. But as David is talking about this, he's going, if I messed up, please just get me to the lions. Because at this point, he feels like he's in torment right now. He don't know which way to go. He thinks he's doing everything right, but they're still coming at him. But then he's like, you know what? If I do something wrong, you know what? Then serve me up. Because I'm doing all this running, thinking that I'm listening to your word. But maybe you sending these people to me because I did mess up. But maybe I need to face maybe I need to face what I did, right? I need to stand in it. And some of us don't admit to that either. I I don't it's a tough thing to think about. Oh, you know what I did? You know what? I accept and just stand there. He's still
Mm.
saying, serve me up to the lines if that's what you have me do. Because I'm running. I'm trying to be free and stay safe. But if you are sending them because I'm supposed to actually turn myself in, all right, I'll do that. But he's just going back and forth, and he is just still trying to give him praise, but he's still just kind of just opening his mouth and just confessing everything. Child, how you just talk out loud, you just talk to yourself. Well, I mean, but then, good, all right, fine. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that I got to say all this to you. And at the end of the day, you kind of have to accept what happens. That's what I got out of chapter 7. Does anybody have anything else to say for 7?
Yeah, I just wrote down just to kind of piggyback off what you said though. The word
Mm-hmm.
persecute stood out, and it
Mm-hmm.
seems like
Yeah.
based on what you're saying that they're persecuting themselves, the sisters who
Yeah.
don't want the answers or have the answers and aren't using the answers. It's a persecution within themselves. But
Ooh.
what really stood out for me was 10 and 11, because it's saying here
Uh-huh.
that my defense is of you,
Yeah.
and he saves
Yes.
the upright in heart.
Saveth the upright in
And
heart,
11, Yah judges the righteous,
righteous
and
anger,
Yah is angry with the wicked every
wicked every day.
day.
Yes.
So,
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that verse. I was reading that again earlier today, and I was like, he's mad at them every day. What you mean? Y'all don't like sinners. What you mean he don't hate sin- he
hmm,
hates every
Mm-mm.
day? Are you still eating that pork? Are you still being idolatrous? Are you still being an adulterer? I hate you. Police, I hate you so much right now. I hate it every day. I'm showing my age. That is an old song. But hey, listen, that title kind of fits with what we're talking about. Every day. You want to keep going that way
Yes.
you know what, sis? Hold on. We talked about this scripture too. It's in Sirach, and I always forget the chapter. Chapter 5. Sirach chapter 5. Verse 1 says, set not your heart upon your goods, and say not, I have enough for my life. 2. Follow not your own mind and your own strength to walk in the ways of your heart. 3. And say not, who shall control me for my works? For the Lord will surely revenge your pride. 4. Say not, I have sinned, and what harm happens unto me? For the Lord is long suffering, he will in no wise let thee go. 5. Concerning propitiation, be not without fear to add sin unto sin. And say not, verse 6, and say not, his mercy is great. He will be pacified for the multitude of my sins. For my mercy and wrath come from him, and his indignation rests upon sinners. Every day, I hate you every day. You are wicked, and you turn not from those ways. Every day. Child.
uh,
um, okay. So I'm gonna get through 12. I have some stuff, but I'm gonna end with 12 because again, like I said, all 5 chapters I read. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but I had some notes that just stood out to me with a few of them. And I'm gonna get into 12 with the first 2 chapters. Excuse me, the first 2 verses in 12 that say it says, "Help, Yah, for the godly man ceases, for the faithful fail from among the children of men." 2. They speak vanity every one with his neighbor, with flattering lips, and with a double heart do they speak. So let's go back to the first verse. Why do we think the faithful are failing among the children of men?
misdirection,
Huh?
lack of guidance.
And who do we think, who do we know the children of men to be?
The ungodly?
Khan. So give me an example of where you call the children of men being brought up or detailed. So you have Tower of Babel, right? Will be one of the descriptions, maybe one of the first descriptions outside of maybe like Noah. Um, Essentially that might have, I think they may have been called sons of man at that time. But children of men. So you got sons of man, but then man had children. And it sounds the same to me, but whatever. Um, Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 through 6. Can, it's almost as if they predicted their own downfall and was looking at it from a different perspective. They said, let's do this so that we don't get scattered away. Because this, if we get up there, we gonna still be together. And then Yah saw that and said, I'm gonna confound them so that they can scatter. Because they didn't think that their whole language would just be their downfall. Getting multiple languages and just kind of leaving it off like, I don't know what to do now. I can't build. I don't know what he's saying. I don't know how to speak to the next person to finish building this tower. That was really cool to me to see the faithful are failing among the children of men. And we're failing because there's more of them than there are of us. However, we're more powerful when we believe in Yah. We're more powerful. We have more influence. We know this by trying to talk to a sister, whatever her age is. We think we got her. I don't want to say it like that. We think we have her understanding maybe the changes she needs to make, maybe the things she needs to reconsider, maybe some information she needs to actually discover on her own and maybe do her research or start to read for herself, right? And as soon as you think, okay, let me go check on her next week, let me go holler at her tomorrow. Oh, sorry, sis, I can't, I don't want to. Oh, thanks anyway. And then another couple weeks go by. Oh, hey, thanks, I appreciate it. Oh, I'm still working on it. Okay. And 6 months go by. And some of them you don't even hear from no more. So you have no idea where they're going. So you start thinking, what did I do? Was I paying attention? Was I too hard? Did I go too fast? Did I scare her away? Because some of us, we might scare you away. And it's not because what we're not saying is the truth. It's because the person still has work to do and their spirit is not allowing them to accept it. It feels overwhelming. It was overwhelming to me in the beginning as well. So I was like, I don't know about all that. Okay, I'll look it up later. I'll look it up and be like, man, it's the only scripture they got. I mean, because what about this? And there's no way. Is this the only? I'll ask them later. I'll just wait. Maybe they won't follow up with me. You do all of these things. But when you're walking in the word and you're figuring out why are we failing among the children of men? We're still being persecuted physically. Like actually, we're still going to jail. We're still being accused falsely. We're still having to hide what we know. We're at work code switching. Code switching. You got Jeff and Edom and Elam. You got all these other folks professing that, oh no, I will never, and that is holy, and I will never. But the minute we say it, whispers, your job's on the line. They done reported you because you decided to say God 3 times. You decided to like put a head wrap on the next day. You decided to say, oh no, I won't be at this year's Thanksgiving potluck. And they're like, oh, she's conspiring, or she's trying to take us down. She's trying to ruin the company. And it's like, because I won't put up a shiny star, because I don't want to put on a mustache in the office photo. Like, what are we doing? Again, see, that was very easy for me to do. What are we doing, y'all? Because then verse 3 in Psalms chapter 12, I'm sorry, excuse me, verse 6 says, the words of Yahweh are pure words, as silver tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. 7. You shall keep them, O Yahweh. You shall preserve them from this generation forever. We have to still remember what it is we're doing. You know, ultimately, we have a lot of fight in this. We just have to know what we're fighting for. We're going to exhaust fight in the air. We're not even supposed to be fighting the air. You're supposed to be fighting a bag, something physical. You're supposed to be fighting the temptations within, right? You're supposed to be fighting all the things that's righteous. Just talking about the women we need to stay away from, the women that, you know, that are probably coming up in this world, this age, and maybe who we are also, like how we're supposed to be moving in this world and what the future is supposed to be looking like towards the end days. And I think that's just kind of like, that's in the air. It's in the air. You could just see people crumbling and your spirit just shaking it off. And it's just, you have to let it happen. You know what I mean? You have to just let your fear and your rejoice happen at the same time. You just have to just let it go, you know?
Just want to say it the water, sis.
Wow. So as we end this conversation, we want to say to Wada for joining us. Tune in next time, same place, same beauty.
Chase
Chase
Made.
made
Taste made is our
our
duty.
duty. Yay! We did it. Shalom.
Shalom, sister.
Shalom.
Good night.
Laya Latawab.
Laya Latawab.